Hey, all my Stationeer friends, thanks for tuning in to episode 8 of the Stationeers tutorial series. So, last episode we ended up not fully completing the integrated circuit logic, and that will be my first priority this episode, and then I will also read off some tips I received because you all are doing such a good job of supporting me. Alright. So first things first, we are going to go into this integrated circuit here. And the way the integrated circuits work is you can put into the chip that I have installed in the housing, you can put some math in there. So let me paste this in right now. Let's go ahead and edit, paste. So what this is doing is saying that, I'll just confirm it for right now. So as you can see, there are 6 ports on the integrated housing circuit, right? There is D0, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5. All right, let's go back here. It's saying that whatever comes in at D0 is going to be vertical angle in. Whatever comes in at D1 is going to be horizontal angle in. So D1 and D0 are going to be my horizontal and vertical angle. And then it's going to alias it. And basically what it's doing is, as you can see here, the numbers 75 and 1.5, if they look familiar, it is because that is the same formula I'm using over here, 75 and 1.5. And we're doing the same math, but we're doing the math in a coding language called MIPS instead of through math processors and memory and all that. And what it's doing is it's subtracting the SolarAngle 75 and then dividing it div by 1.5 and then outputting these to the AngleOuts, the vertical and horizontal angle out, which is here. So if we go ahead and export this to the chip, we got to turn the chip on, export this to the chip is going to flash because it has input errors. But as you can see, if we look over the housings, it says vAngleIn, hAngleIn, vAngleOut, hAngleOut. That means we've exported this math that helps to process the SolarAngle into this integrated circuit here. And as you can see, the circuit literally reads down here 610 bytes. That is the size of our program. Alright. So let's go ahead and grab the housing and the circuit and install it over here. I also wanted to mention that I got my north, south, east, and west confused, so we're going to have to fix that as well. So first things first, let's get the circuits installed. So my sensors here are angled the incorrect way, and I'm going to fix that. This one should be facing south, I believe. Let me double check if that is true. Yep, north rather. So this is north. Yes. And then this one is facing the wrong angle as well. But my hand drill just ran out of charge. Let's charge the battery up. The fastest way to do this is just drop the drill, grab the battery out of there. And for now, we're going to put a large battery into the drill while the small battery charges up on that power controller. So let's fix this daylight sensor. And this one will be pointed the other direction. Alright, that ought to work. Now we'll put the housing down. And the chip inside the housing. This chip still has our program in it. So the power for the housing is on the top. Let's see if the inputs read correctly when we power this on. Yep, vAngleIn, vAngle, hAngleIn, so on and so forth. Great. All right, next up. Let's not jump to our doom. We want to wire everything together so that we have access to the data ports like this. Bada bing. And for now, we'll have just 3 solar power panels. And of course, we're not actually capturing any of the power that these generate. For right now, I'm just mostly focused on getting this working. So there is one of our sensors, and then our other sensors down here. And I should have enough cable for that. Good. Next up, just so that you know what you're working with, really need to name some of these. So we're going to call this vert mem. Let me capitalize that. And vert batch writer. And this is going to be the ironically the horizontal sensor. I guess we could rename this to horizontal. It doesn't really matter which one. So hos mem and horizontal batch writer. All right, and then this is the vert sensor. Vert batch writer and vert mem. Great. Put that away. Next up, wiring up the housing correctly. So the vertical AngleIn needs to come from the vert sensor. The horizontal AngleIn needs to come from the horizontal sensor. And then the vertical AngleOut goes to the vertical memory, and the horizontal AngleOut goes to the horizontal memory. Great. And then on top of that, the horizontal batch writer has to output to solar power panels of horizontal angle, and the input will be the horizontal mem. We could turn that on. And then, yeah, this one's running out of power too. The other batch writer will output to the solar power panels, vertical angle, and the input of that is vert mem. Turn that on. And then we're going to need to charge up some more batteries. So let me switch the batteries around. So this large battery is going to go temporarily into the APC here, just to make sure that all of our beautiful coding stuff works. So turn this on. And once they angle correctly, they should start to generate some power. They should be actually quite efficient. And there we go, 99% efficient. So what this little integrated circuit is doing, it's saying it has an error at line 7. You know, you don't have an error. And as you can see, the solar power panels are moving. So this little integrated circuit there, if you're wondering why I used an integrated circuit, is replacing a logic reader, a math unit, another logic reader. So 4 of those chips are being integrated into this one little integrated circuit. And that is the power of the integrated circuit. That is why I am using it over, you know, some alternative method. And that is about as much as I'm going to go into integrated circuits. I, for instance, am not really all that fluent in MIPS, and I can't explain it that much more than I already have, but there you go. This has been a successful demonstration of how to track solar using integrated circuits. There's not a lot of guides online on this. And just to remember, the angle and the direction of these sensors do matter. So the vertical sensor needs to face north. So as you can see here, it faces north, this being west, this being east. And then the horizontal sensor needs to face south. And as a result, we have these beautiful solar power panels. Now, at present, as I said, it is not actually storing any power. The power outputs here are going nowhere. So what I should do is at least feed it back to this area power controller, so that the area power controller doesn't eventually run itself out of power, and then we'll be able to have the elevators powered. So if I want to run power down there, as you can see, we need to make some more cables. Now, eventually what I'm going to have is all of these solar power panels on the same heavy cabling network feeding into various batteries, and then those various batteries are going to control, they're going to control, you know, various parts of the base. What I need to do right now is crank out some cabling. So where is my copper? Let's turn off that arc furnace. Here's a bunch of copper. Yes, I remember that I used up pretty much the last of my copper last episode. So let's go smelt some more in the arc furnace because I'm lazy. I did have a lot of comments asking me why I have not made a proper furnace room. I plan on it. So actually, speaking of which, let me go over some suggestions. Lego Legs and others also mentioned to make a gas-based furnace. One that does not require solid ices, but instead I feed with a tank. I plan on doing that, and another suggestion I had from Mr. Awesome 112 was a basement below the surface of Mars that has a furnace and the machines like this stuff. And I think that's a great idea, and I will work towards that. It's probably not my top priority. And by that I mean that it's going to be maybe the last project I add to this house, but I will, in fact, add it. So the next thing I want to do, is take flight. No, is take this small battery out of here and plop it where the big battery is over there, because we're going to need a battery to swap our suit to. Now I can make some additional large batteries. I might actually want to wait until I am able to afford nuclear batteries. They don't actually require uranium. Afford nuclear batteries because they're going to be far more bang for my buck. And then also it seems like because of the elevator, this solar power panel is not going to be able to feed power to my grid, so I am going to get rid of it. Sorry, solar power panel. We will move you somewhere else. Let me go ahead and grab it so we don't forget that it's back there. Alright. So that means that the power that my my solar panels generate will have to feed. We want them to feed back to the APC so that the APC that powers up all of the logic for my solar power tracking doesn't eventually just deplete and run out, and that would be, you know, sort of pointless. And then eventually I will add heavy cabling here so that we can store and transfer more power. So this here can be a T-junction. There we go. And then the power that I generate, I'm going to break one of my cardinal rules and just feed it through this frame. This is inelegant, and I can always fix this up later. But for now, I'm just interested in getting it working, you know? Okay. So now we have power coming through the frame. Let's deconstruct the frame. It won't break away any of these circuits. They'll float. I know it looks odd, but the circuits are fine with it. Alright, I was going to run power down, but looks like I'm running power through instead. And there we go. Now, this battery will start charging rather than draining, so that our solar logic here won't just eventually run out of power and kill itself. Alright, now that we have that done, I am going to weld the frames back together. And I have to, at this point, yep, our solar power panels easily fill that battery up. We should also probably store power long term. meaning actual physical batteries. But before I do that, I should also upgrade these cables to heavy cabling. But I think I have other things to work on first and foremost. So I'm going to leave the rest of these solar panels up, and I can say now successfully I have set up integrated circuit solar tracking. So there we go. That's the whole thing. Okay. Now, if I want to work on atmospherics first, which I do, and the reason why I want to do this first is to fill this base that I have here up with nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, I'm going to need an insane amount of those gases, right? Like, it's going to take a while to acquire that. The Mars is mostly carbon dioxide. So if we look here, it is 1% O2 and 3% N2. So if we suck enough air out of Mars for long enough, what will end up happening is we will have enough oxygen and nitrogen to fill the base up with majority oxygen and nitrogen. Because, of course, if we want to walk around without a helmet on, it needs to be mostly oxygen. Well, it needs a certain amount of oxygen. Nitrogen is actually not needed, but I'd like to mimic Earth's atmosphere because I can. So I also want to make a kit battery, so we're going to need a little bit more copper for that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the bare minimum for filtration of... Oh, what were we out of there? Steel? Really? I am out of steel? I mean, if it tells me I am, I am. We only have nickel and iron left in here. I'd have to get some copper. Now that we aren't using this computer, I can salvage some of the cables. Computers can have different motherboards. There's a few different motherboards that you can have, and I can always reuse this computer for manufacturing or something like that in the future. So this kit battery, we're going to have to decide where it goes, and in the dark. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to store the power that we need. I can store it maybe in the crawl space. Now the only problem I foresee is that access to this crawl space is going to be near impossible without adding levels to the elevator. The crawl spaces are... and I don't think I'm going to use this elevator. So what's going to end up happening is I will have eventually everything walled off, and maybe we can access the crawl spaces through this weird tunnel in here. If I end up wanting crawl spaces, it depends. But regardless, I need to store some power so that we can fuel some filtration. So I do have some of these tanks labeled. Have I? Let me take out my labeler. Small tank, small tank, small tank. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. Okay. I have them labeled. Whoa. Flying into things here. So the next thing I need is atmospheric units. Kit atmospherics. Gold, copper, and iron. There's my solder, electrum, steel, copper, gold, and iron. And I'm going to want 3 of them. For now. Yeah, 3 will be fine. As you can see, I am out of copper entirely. So I can set up these 2. And then maybe go do a little bit mining of copper. I wanted to avoid as much as I could of mining on camera, but sometimes it's just not all that possible. Okay, so the input is here, the unfiltered is there, and the filter goes straight into the tank. So this will be carbon dioxide and oxygen. And then the atmosphere of Mars, let's not forget, also has X. So we're going to store X in one of these tanks over here. So I will just decide that this will be the X tank. X is pollutants. Or not even pollutants. X is its own thing. All right, oxygen tank. Next up, we're going to need, as I said, some copper, but we can also lay some piping down as well. So I'm going to have probably more than one active vent. And of course, I'm out of copper, so I only get to make one right now. I'm not going to worry about hunger at the moment. Let's see, what am I looking for? I also, in my suit, I am running low. I'm on my last filter for carbon dioxide. And once that filter runs out, what will end up happening is I will be breathing whatever. I'll be basically breathing atmosphere at that point. Alright, so I'm looking, I'll put one vent here. I don't want to stack all the vents on top of one another because they'll all be pulling from the same atmosphere source, so you want to spread them out a bit. Which means cranking out some pipes. Now, I was looking around my base to see if I had any pipes, but I don't. Not yet. I don't have any in storage or anything like that. So we'll crank out some pipes. We have a lot of iron, so that should be fine. Making sure I don't have any copper hidden. No, I really don't. Looks to me like my plants are sitting pretty. I haven't needed the food in a bit, so I'm not going to worry about eating. Or rather, tending to those plants. They're just to keep me sustained. Now, eventually I might want to start to do some real farming and that kind of stuff. Because things like medicines are made with... ingredients that you farm for, so on and so forth. So I'm just laying down some piping. So for now, we are just going to store the gases. They're going to be at room temperature, or they're going to be at whatever temperature we pull the atmosphere from, which means they'll be cold. I will have to deal with that later. And we are out of pipes, but we were making a lot of pipes. So let's get these canceled out or stopped. So although I don't have another atmospherics, I know exactly where it will go. It'll be laid out just like this, just like the last few. And then anything that is unfiltered still is going to be X, because that's the only thing left in the atmosphere. So this unfiltered can go straight into the X tank, because there's really nothing left. Now, there will be something, if I add a furnace to do some smelting, there will be some left for X. And then I have to decide, the battery I'm putting down here is going to be temporary. I'm not going to keep it here. This is not its permanent spot. But this will, I want to start to gather the air that I'll need to be able to, you know, have a breathable base. And I need to do that early, because it will take a while to accumulate all of the air that I'm going to need, which is why I'm working on this now. So that when we have the rest of the base all sort of scored away and ready to go, we actually have oxygen and nitrogen and carbon dioxide to introduce into the base for atmosphere. So right now I'm just wiring it up so that the atmospheric units will have power. And once we connect the solar power panels to the battery. I haven't done that yet. But yes, we still need some copper. It is becoming daytime, so that is a good time of day to do our mining. Before we go ahead and do that, let's check some things. So the first thing I'm going to check is the batteries of our drill. Suit. So the drill and the angle grinder. Might as well get these full while I wait for daytime. Honestly, the batteries of even my tablet, the battery port is a little bit. Is it exposed? Maybe I have to just go in like this. All right, so that's fully powered up. And this is fully powered up. Small batteries don't take they don't store a lot of power, so they don't take very long to charge. And then take off this tool belt and switch it with my mining belt. I haven't mined in a while, or at least not on camera, so yep. And this battery was low, the drill's battery. And although you can mine manually with your pick, it is dreadful slow. And now I have to find a node of copper. That is my limiting factor material. You'll notice that different parts of the base de-render at different times. So from a distance, your base mostly looks of frames and the like. Nothing like a little Mars hole. Some iron, coal. Oh, let's bask in this beautiful sun. Here we go. Ouch. Whoa, that was loud. Very alarming. So by basking, I mean crashing. Let's crash in this beautiful sun. What I should do is also keep an eye out for lead, because lead will allow me to build a better suit. The starter suit that you have, your little EVA suit, is more fragile than a hard suit. But a hard suit, I believe off the top of my head, requires lead. Could be wrong about that. And lead is somewhat of a more rare resource. So the common resources, of course, are copper and iron, and then a little less common is gold. And then less common than that is the ones that require for compounds. Oh, actually coal is fairly common, about as common as gold. And then rarer yet is the silver that you use for electrum, the lead that you use for solder and other things, and silicon. Silicon might be about as common as coal. But then, of course, nickel and uranium is really rare. I don't think uranium has a use yet. I only say think, though, because new items are introduced into this game pretty regularly. So actually, right now, there are some items that I've never made, never touched, never used. There's a rover that got introduced that literally allows you to drive around, which is super cool, and I'll be getting to that. I just don't want to jump to it because it wouldn't be part of your natural progression. Building a Martian base and skipping over the base entirely and going straight to rover seems a little incorrect. And then of course there's nickel. Yeah, I'm probably missing one. Silver, nickel, lead, gold. Yeah, that might be it. I don't know if there's any more copper in this node, so that's good enough. Let's put our mining belt away. We overshot. As long as we don't slam into the ground, we're fine. I already broke my suit once, so hopefully not twice in one episode. And we'll just arc this copper, because we don't have a proper furnace room. I will be building a proper furnace room. It's just because this one will do for now, it's fine for now. and we've got our electrum. So, reminding myself what I am working on here, I need some cabling. I need some more pipes and an atmospheric unit. Okay. Well, we can do the pipes while we wait for the copper. So I'm going to be pulling atmosphere for my atmospherics from maybe 3 different vents. Also, I would like some more solar power. Copper, gold, and iron. And that way we just collect more atmosphere quicker. Because it's my main concern that it will take a while. Maybe I'm wrong. So this is all temporary piping, which is why it's going to be hideous and ugly. And it's just because I'm trying to spread my my active vents out so that they're pulling atmosphere from different spots. Because unlike some games, this game actually renders local atmosphere, so you are able to actually sort of evacuate atmosphere temporarily if you suck it all out of like one sort of semi-confined space. So I'll put the active vent maybe outside over here. This will do. I'll put one active vent there, and then the last active vent will run along the edge of the where to put it? Maybe I can slap it on that sheet. And the reason why I am thinking about extra solar power panels is it's going to be a little expensive to power the filters and the vents. So I need to make sure that I'm generating enough power so that they don't turn off. All right, and steel frame. I'm gonna need 2 of these. All right, that might be enough. Let's grab the copper. Making 2 steel frames. So these 2 steel frames, I think 4 solar power panels. It might not be quite enough to keep this going, but it will be most of the way there. Okay. There we go. Sometimes when you fly in front of it, it gets a little weird. But no, it's back to normal. I don't have any spare steel sheets still either. But yeah, let's just get the power and the vents going. This is really ugly and very slapped together. I acknowledge that. Alright, we want 2 more active vents. Now, if you end up making stuff like an active vent and you're only going to use it once. Now, of course, I'm going to have use of active vents in the full base, but there's always a recycler that you can throw items in that you don't need and recycle them into their compounds, into their fundamental components. So there's that active vent. And actually, the active vent I built over here is kind of pointless because it's like it snakes around and basically goes straight back to the first spot. So let me fix this. I'm going to put my vent here, and we'll bring piping over to it. So what I need to do is deconstruct this window so I can deconstruct these pipes. then we'll run the pipes to these vents. I'm not certain that this is like it's not necessarily the best layout or whatever. It's just it's fine. Hello, errant pipe. All right, let's put the sheet back into the window and make a few more pipes. And then, of course, we'll need, so what I'm going to do is start to make cables. Because we're going to need to power it all up. Oh, I thought I just stuck copper in there. I stuck my, my copper's in my hand. Dope. And here's 50 more copper. Now, as long as I don't have more than 10 or so solar power on one network, solar power panels that is, on one network, we won't exceed the capacity of the cable. So these small regular red cables that I'm getting, these cable coils, will burn out at 5 kilowatts. And each solar power panel I have generates about 500 watts. So it would take maybe 10 or 11 solar power panels. This changes, of course, on the moon. The sun is closer to the moon than it is to Mars. So the amount that you can put on one network changes depending on how close you are to the sun, basically. So just keep that in mind. So if you're playing on Europa, Europa has particularly weak sunlight, being that it is a moon of Jupiter, and as such, does not have. You need more solar power panels to hit that 5 kilowatt mark. Okay, so that is all piped up. My excess pipes I can just toss away. I still do need to wire up my solar power panels here to charge the battery down below, so let's get that going. And again, inelegant, everything that I'm adding right now is somewhat temporary in order to get the base's air. None of this is permanent solutions or any of that. It will be a lot more elegant for the final build, but the final build is going to require higher quality cabling and stuff like that. I'll actually make it look nice, or as nice as I'm able. All right, so the solar power panels now plug into the battery. What I'm going to need is the atmospherics unit and 2 steel sheets. Oh, also, it looks like this CO2 filter is dead. Yeah, it's dead. We actually don't need these filtration units on anymore, because we can just have the air that we pull out of the farm to fill this tube here. There's not enough air in the farm to rupture this pipe here, so that's kind of a not problem. Alright, so as I said, atmospherics, which is going to require gold and copper, so let's get the gold and copper out of the printer. And then we also want 2 steel sheets. That's going to be real fast. Let me not walk away from that. 1 and 2. So these are for the frames where the solar panels are going to go. I also still need 1 more solar power panel, but let me work on one thing at a time. So this is the other atmospherics that we need. And I know I'm running a little bit over time, but I'd like to get the air circulation network going before I call it quits. I'll run a little long if I need to. I like sometimes to have a fire under my butt so I work faster, you know? Alright, that is... And of course the data needs to face the same way. Done. That's one panel. Unwired up, but one panel. And let's get the other panel going. I hope 4 is enough. And then we're going to need filters. So solar, I don't even have enough copper to make 2 panels, just the one. So I can walk away and not worry about it.
Jetpack on.
Alright, jetpack up to here. Data and, yep, alright, everything's facing the right direction. Put the sheets a glass away. And wire this up as best I can. I say as best I can because I might not have enough cables to actually do all of it. But I can print some out. I have 19 copper left. I do like how far you can take just a... You know, I only mined copper for a minute or two, right? Like, I didn't spend a lot of time. But we were able to make multiple solar power panels and atmospheric units and cables. And, like, this game isn't so much about resource grind, which I highly appreciate, because some other games are all about the grind, and that's sort of boring. So now I'm going to have to rewire my APC to draw power from the battery rather than feed power to the battery. So that's a bit of a problem. Our solar tracking won't work until I fix that. The electrum and solder I'll just stick into the pipe bending unit for safekeeping. Actually, chances are I'm going to want every single piece of copper I have to be fed. So what I want here is to... This APC is being fed by the solar power panels. Instead, I want it to feed from the battery, but that actually means running power from here all the way back up, which would suck, 'cause that's a long way to have double cables. Again, eventually I will have everything be more efficient and better laid out. But most of your bases, I suspect, will look something like this. You don't elegantly engineer a perfect solution on day one. And if you are, you probably spent too long engineering that perfectly elegant solution. And it's just my 2 cents. That sometimes messy is just fine, because not only is there room for improvement, but there's also room for learning. If everything is like, if you're a perfectionist, this game will bug you, because a lot of solutions are fast but very imperfect. I'll put it that way. But my current goal is just to get these vents cranking. So that's all I really care about. And get the filters filtering, the atmospherics filtering, so that we can, you know, breathe something, you know? If air... It'd be really cool to not be in a suit forever. I can only imagine that that would be insanely limiting and claustrophobic. To the point where, like, I don't think you should even really be able to farm very well until you have no suit. Alright, so all my vents are plugged in. I might want to wait until daytime when I'm actually generating power, because if I did it right now, turned on all those vents and all that, it wouldn't really work. And this solar power panel still needs some data. And then this battery got drained out because it fed into this battery. So the only way for me to fix that, really, is to have this battery feed back to it. So yeah, I'm just gonna fix that. It's a real pain. But for right now, it's actually probably cheaper for me to, first off, dump these steel sheets. It's probably cheaper, what I was gonna say, is for me to not even have this APC charged, so that it won't drain out to the battery. So this is the cable that goes all the way down to the battery. And then I guess I can put a cable that comes up from the battery. The closest pass we have is here. This is close to the up from the battery as we get, so I'll just continue this up. And time for some really messy cabling. I did warn you that this all would be messy. There's logic and reasoning behind all of this, though. Anyone that has played a game like Factorio knows that sometimes your first pass at a system does not look so clean. Alright, and I might not have enough copper to run this all the way back. Oh my god, it's close though. And now I'm out of copper. So what I'm going to do for right now is to just grab the big old battery here that controls that it has a lot of charge and slap it in here so that my solar power tracking will work for now. And confirming that I indeed have no more... No, I have no more copper anywhere. But yes, now these solar power panels charge this battery, and this battery will be able to power all of my intake vents. So I'm going to turn these on, and what these are going to do is going to start filling this intake pipe, because I don't have the filtration units have filters yet. That's fine. We can pressurize a pipe. And there we go. They're sucking air in from everywhere. Let's make 3 filters. So we want an oxygen filter. And we're going to need to grab iron from here to do it. So 1 oxygen filter, 1 nitrogen filter, and 1 carbon dioxide filter. Actually, I might want 2 carbon dioxide filters because I should install one in my suit. Do not, whatever I say, do not ever install an oxygen filter into your own suit. That would be really funny. Because what would end up happening would be all of the air in your helmet would immediately go to your waste tank. That'd be a really weird way to kill yourself. I'm actually going to make a few carbon dioxide filters just to keep me going. I'll also install one in this filtration unit because that filtration unit used up its carbon dioxide filter. So now my suit has 3, and I have 1 spare for my systems over there. Let's put these bad boys in my backpack and run over here. The battery charge is going up, which means we are good on power. What is this? The oxygen filter. And this is the nitrogen tank. Okay, let's find the nitrogen filter. And then this is the carbon dioxide tank. So we'll put the carbon dioxide filter in there. And then the oxygen tank with the oxygen filter. And if I turn these bad boys on, let's get our tablet and start to analyze. So this nitrogen tank, as you can see, is slowly filling up of nitrogen. The carbon dioxide tank is filling up much more quickly with carbon dioxide because there's just the majority of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, and then the oxygen tank very slowly filling up with oxygen, aka our beautiful filtration works. And then the intake pipe is empty, but that's because we are filtering it really, really fast. But we're intaking from 3 different vents at 3 different spots. So this is about as fast as we can fill these tanks with atmosphere. So these 3 tanks, I should maybe crank out some paint, but these 3 tanks will eventually be color coded and have beautiful readouts and all that of their contents. But there you have it, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide being stored. Oh, and actually X too, right? Because the atmosphere is a teeny, teeny, teeny portion of X, and X is a really good use for coolant. So, yeah, what I'm going to do now is, maybe call this episode a quit. Ran a little long, but I got what I wanted to get accomplished, so I'm very happy about that. If you have any feedback, tips, ideas, tricks, or questions, drop me a line, and I do hope that you tune in next time. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Adios, friends.